Hi, my name's Steve. This is my first ever post to YouTube Live, and I have a story that I'd like to share that I've called The Unseen Guard. It's a true story. It actually happened to me in my teen years, of what I think perhaps was an angel intervening in what may have been otherwise the end of my life, or perhaps serious injury. At the time, being a teenager, I'm sure many can relate to this, I was purely living for pleasure, not at all interested in God. I knew from Sunday school when I was a kid that there had to be a God, but I had nothing to do with him. I wasn't interested. I was only seeking after entertainment and feelings, and we did that back then as teenagers, through particularly with alcohol, but later on with some other substances. This event, I believe it was a Friday night. There was a unlicensed disco in the city of Adelaide in South Australia. They used to call them back then blue light discos. Blue light discos were called that because the police in Australia generally then used to have blue lights, and the police used to run these venues for teenagers so that they could at least enjoy themselves without alcohol, and there was obviously police supervision there. I went with a group of friends. I don't remember how many now. I would say at least 3 or 4, and I was the only one with a car at that stage, so I obviously provided the transport for everybody from where we lived into the city of Adelaide. The Blue Light Disco was actually held in a back street called Pirie Street in Adelaide, I think in a basement of a commercial property, etc. So we arrived at this event. What was on our minds then, as I'm sure is on the minds of most teenagers, was to meet girls. And we entered the venue, and there was the sort of music that we were interested in, and I could say really that we were dressed, I suppose, for attention. We were dressed back then as what people in Britain would, and maybe in Australia, parts of Australia, would understand as being skinheads. So we had like red socks and rolled up jeans and shoes that weren't platform shoes, but something close to it. And we danced in a way that I guess we would have called then surfy style. Unknown to us, in the crowd of the venue was another group of guys. Back then used to dress in stovepipe jeans and ripple-soled shoes and grease their hair back, and we didn't realize at the time, but our dancing was drawing attention to ourselves from these guys. And as what happens in those events, the night ended and it was time to leave, and that was all shepherded by the police, of course. And so a group of my friends, say 2 or 3 of them, waited out the front of the venue, and a guy called Lester and I decided we would walk back to the car park, which was quite some distance from the door to the Blue Light Disco. So we were walking down the street and became aware of the sound of a lot of thundering feet coming up behind us, and looked over our shoulders to see a group of guys. I can't tell you exactly how many there were. I would say somewhere around 8 to 12 guys, and they were chasing after us now. So we did what you would do in the circumstance, and we ran ourselves. I remember that my friend Lester took off to the left ahead of me and vanished, and then now all of a sudden everybody was chasing me. I was making a dash for the car and could hear the feet getting closer and closer, and eventually got to my car, but I was so nervous, so scared, that I couldn't get my car keys out of my pocket, and I could hear the footsteps getting closer and closer. And eventually that I realised that if I didn't put my car keys away, they were most likely going to be stolen or lost. So I put the keys back into my pocket just as this group of guys arrived on me. They jumped on me, they kicked me, they punched me, and I curled up into a ball on the ground. They were even jumping from the bonnet of my car, Americans might call it the hood of my car, onto me, curled up in a ball on the ground in this car park. And what else could I do? All I could do was try and protect myself from this group of guys. Suddenly, there was a calming voice, and I don't remember exactly what he said, but he said something along the lines of, "Leave him alone, get away from him." And I, still curled up in a ball on the ground, actually thought this guy was quite tall, and they obeyed his instructions. They actually seemed to step back. So my suspicions were now aroused would be the correct word, that this guy was the gang leader, and he was attempting to get me to stand up, and I was extremely suspicious that the intention was to get me to stand up, whereon they would all start to beat me, or he would lay a punch on me or whatever. But that didn't happen. What actually happened was these guys stepped away. They stepped away, I would guess some 4 or 5 meters from me, while he brushed me off and asked me if I was okay, and I managed to stand up, obviously, and at some point reassure him that I was okay, because I actually was. There was no injury that I remember. And these guys that had been attacking me just seemed to disappear. But also, the guy that, this voice that had calmed these guys, also, when I turned around, he was gone as well. I couldn't see him. There was no sign of this guy. Now, I'm not saying 100% that this was an angel sent from heaven, but the authority, this actual gentle authority of this guy in his voice, and the immediate following of those directions by this gang of guys that had been up until this moment intent on kicking the daylights out of me, would suggest that there's a strong potential that he was an angel. I wasn't a believer then, as I mentioned before. I am now a believer of 33 years. But the Bible does talk about, in Hebrews 13 verse 2, it actually says that we should entertain strangers, for in so doing, some people have unknowingly entertained angels. The Bible is very clear about angels. It warns us as well that not everything that has light is necessarily a godly angel, because there are fallen angels. But to this day, I have remembered this event. Here I am telling it on YouTube. I have remembered this event clearly and shared it with some other people, and it never has failed to amaze those that I have shared it with. And I hope that in some small way, this video might be of comfort to someone else. Thank you so much. Bye.